Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Lynn Foster, and we're doing our portion of our Patriotism project with my dad, Charlie Siebold. And you mind if I ask some questions about your experiences
No?
serving in the military? Good. First of all, when and where were you born?
I was born in Fort Wayne, Indiana in 1944.
And what were you doing before you entered the service?
Various jobs around home in the UP of Bergland, of Michigan, in Bergland, Michigan. And I graduated from high school and went right into the service.
Nice. Which branch of the military did you serve?
In the Navy.
Were you enlisted, or were you drafted?
The draft was out, but I had a choice of services I went into, so as long as I had a choice, I joined the Navy so I was not actually drafted, but I did have a draft card.
And why did you choose the Navy?
Because I like the water and I don't like digging ditches.
And your experiences in the Navy included being on ships or in submarines?
When I first joined the Navy, I joined under the Nuclear Polaris program, which meant that I would have been assigned a nuclear submarine as soon as I finished all my schooling. But because Vietnam was coming in, they shortened that up, and I requested that I go to a surface ship and not finish the nuclear part of it. And also they told me at the time, which I was a young guy, they says, if you wear glasses you can't go into a submarine, which did not make any sense to me. And I talked to a submarine captain that was a friend of mine, and he says no, they should have never done that. They just needed more people on the surface ships. So I went to the surface Navy and the conventional Navy, not the nuclear side of it, because I opted to get out of that.
And what role did you play in Vietnam then?
I was on a ship that was lobbing large bullets into where we were told to shoot them.
And what was your specific role in the military?
Well, when I first entered, I was enlisted as a machinist mate, which is working down in the engine room, driving the ship to wherever we had to get to. I was the one that propelled the ship through the water. And so I never actually got to pull the trigger on any of the guns or anything like that, but I had to be there to get the ship where it had to go.
Now, I remember one time you saying that you were a CB. What does that mean?
Well, over the period of 40 years that I was in the Navy, my last 8 years, they asked me if I'd like to take command of a CB units. And a CB is a construction battalion, and they have many aspects of that. Mine happened to be, I was assigned to be a logistics officer. I got to start back. My first 20 years, I was on active duty for 10 years. I was in the reserve, and then I got out for a year, went into the reserves, and when I was in the reserves, they told me that I got a letter from Washington, D.C. to order me to go to either Washington, D.C. or Newport, Rhode Island to have a ceremony with an admiral to give me a letter of commendation for what I did before I got off of active duty. I was the first enlisted sailor that ever refueled a helicopter while it was in flight from the deck of a ship.
Wow, that is cool.
And that was what my commendation was for. So I said, well, I've already served my 6 years and plus, and I really don't have to go any place to get anything. So I went down, I happened to be living in Toledo, and there was a reserve center there. I went over there and asked them how would I get this commendation if I wanted it. They said, well, join the reserves, and next time there's an admiral in the area, we'll have him come over and present it to you. So I joined the reserves, and I stayed until I made E9, and then as you get higher in rank, you get more people working for you, but you're also restricted on how much you can do for those people because of you're not an officer. You're a chief petty officer or master chief petty officer, what I was, but you can still only do so much. So I said, well, I'm going to go for a warrant program. So I put in my paperwork for warrant and got it. And I went into the warrant program for 4 or 5 years where I was a technical officer. I was not a line officer, I was a technical officer, which means, because I've had experience in the engine room, and the warrants are a technical officer. No matter what your rate was, if you were an electrician, you'd be a warrant electrician, or I was a warrant mechanical.
Okay.
So I would, I was in charge of all the engine rooms and stuff like that. And there again, I went as high as I could in the warrant, and I was still restricted as to how much I could do for my people that work for me. So I said I went for what they call the LDO program, which is Limited Duty Officer. And then I became a line officer, and that meant that I was not restricted to just the engineering part of it, the mechanical end of it. I could do anything that an officer is required to do. And then we were getting up into my 30-year range, 32-year range. They asked me if I wanted to get into the CBs, take over a CB unit. And I said yes, because it was a new experience. I liked the new experiences.
And that's how you served in the Gulf War then?
And that's how I went for the Gulf War, yes. Desert Storm. But getting back to being a logistics officer, my mission there was, we have merchant marine ships stationed throughout the world, always at sea, always loaded and ready to go. If we have a war or a conflict break out someplace, they get a message that says, direct your ship to such and such a place, wherever this conflict is, and supply the troops there. Well, the Army and the Marines are flying into this area, or getting to this area to fight. We're coming into the area with all the merchant marine ships that are loaded to the hilt with Jeeps, Humvees, tanks, any kind of water buffaloes, fuel buffaloes, anything that we needed, the tankers, to support the ground troops. And then we had rafts, well, they were called barges, on that ship that would be loaded or offloaded from the ship into the water, and they're motorized. They're like 50 feet wide and 100 feet long, and we could take M1A1 tanks on it.
Wow.
And any kind of equipment on them, and we would load them onto there. We would prepare them, make sure they were full of fuel, oil was right, the batteries worked, the engines worked, everything worked. Put them on these barges, and we'd ride into shore, drop our ramp, and the ground contingent, whichever is Marines or Army, would come up, and I would send them over to them. They would take them, and I'd say, okay, I'll see you guys tomorrow with another load of stuff. And I would have to be the first one on site for any of the conflicts that happened, which one of them was Desert Storm. And then I was also the last one to leave, because I had to take back all the equipment that was left, if there was anything left from that. And that's what I did in the CBs. And then there's other aspects of the CBs that I could have been into, and we go over and build bridges. We also do construction. We go in and we build camps where the people are stationed. The Army has to have places like tents and eating and
So like kitchens?
Yeah, kitchens and places like that, and we supplied all that stuff, set it up for them. That was different aspects of the CBs. Mine just happened to be the equipment, bring it in. So that's what I did in the CBs.
What was the highest rank that you achieved then?
I was,
Or you'd still be considered?
I've never resigned my rank. I retired as a lieutenant commander. I did make commander, which is '04 or '05, but I would have had to stay in for another 3 years, and because I didn't stay in for those 3 years, I couldn't. Did not become permanent.
Okay.
So I had to retire as a lieutenant commander, which was a permanent rank, and because I was at my age limit where I was ready to retire, and it was just before Desert Storm. No, Operation Iraqi, I'm sorry, and I got out about a month before they wasn't letting anybody out.
Mm-hmm.
If I'd have got stuck in that, I would have come out as a commander or dead, one or the other.
Yeah.
But anyhow, that's why I got out.
How did your experiences in the military impact your life just as a human being and the way you perceive the world? Or
Okay, let's see. Over the years, I was stationed in many different countries. We were stationed in Puerto Rico, stationed in Japan, I was stationed in Germany, I was stationed in Italy and France, and I got to see how all the people of the other
cultures?
countries and cultures lived. And every one of them was very unique. Like in Japan, for instance, I was in Yokosuka, Japan, and I had civilians and military working for me there as a ship repair officer there. That was before I got into the Seabees. And the civilians would come out on the base in the morning to work on the ships, dressed in a suit and tie, just as nice and clean as you could be. They would go to their bathhouses. They would change into their dingy clothes and go to work all day. They were the ones that crawled down in the bilges and went into the small work spaces and did the work where some of the sailors couldn't get into because they were smaller people. And we used them for that. And at the end of the day, when time to call it quits, they would go back into the bathhouses, take a shower or bath, and put on their street clothes, the tie and everything, and walk off the base. You'd never know what their job was.
Uh-huh.
And the only way to get them to take time off, if they did a super job, the only way to get them to take a time off was to, they would take the time off, but they would not go home because they would be embarrassed if they thought that their neighbor saw them coming home in the middle of the day. They would think they were fired.
Huh.
They would lose face because of
So their work ethic impressed you
yes.
quite a bit.
And a lot of the civilian factories in Japan, the only way they can make their people take vacation is to shut the whole factory down. Everybody takes vacation at the same time,
Yeah.
and then they come back to work. They will not take individual. It's changed since then a little bit, but that's the way it was. And let's see what else. In Germany, or in France, or in Italy, you just see the different attitude, I guess, of people. For instance, I was in Italy, and I was on shore leave, what we call shore leave, or liberty. The night JFK, John F. Kennedy, was killed. And we that were on the shore did not know what had happened, but we had the shore patrol, which is the military police, come around and say, "Get back to the ship now." And we all just got back. We had to ride a launch from the shore out to the ship because we moored out in the water. And we got back to the ship, and then we found out what was happening. And then I think it was about 2 days later they finally granted us liberty again, or shore leave. And when we got there, every store we went by had pictures with John F. Kennedy with a black sash across it.
Wow. So they really honored our president big time.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
They thought more of our president than we did, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What would be your definition of patriotism?
To put your time into the military, to keep your people at home safe, do what is needed to keep America safe.
And then, did you have any other messages that you would want to leave for future generations through this interview? And,
Other than, like I said, I put 40 years in, and if I was a young man, I'd do it again in a heartbeat. I can't think of anything that I would have rather have done than that. I mean, you can look back and say, if I would have done this, maybe this would have happened, or that would have happened. Well, I don't have that experience because I did what I did, and you make your decisions and then see what falls out from it. One thing that I do know that most military tell you, don't volunteer for anything, because you usually get the short end of the stick. Well, every time I volunteered for something, it turned out to be a pot of gold.
yeah,
So
interesting.
it's your attitude that you have when you're in there. If you show them that you want to work and want to do things, you're gonna start moving ahead real quick. If you have an attitude that you don't care and things are not happening good for you, it's probably your own fault. That's all I can tell
And
you.
that's a civilian or?
And that's in any job,
anything,
yes.
And the last question is there anything that I should have asked that I didn't ask in this interview that you?
What benefits do I get?
Okay.
When I was young, I did not think about it at all, about retiring from the military. In fact, when I got out after 10 years, I never thought I'd ever get anything out of it. But then when I joined the reserves and continued on until I got my 40 years in, now I'm reaping all the benefits. I got a retirement from them, all my medicals paid, all my hospitalizations paid. I don't have to worry about anything. And,
That's big.
And that, you don't think about it when you're young, but when you're older, and you look back and think, holy man, if I had to have open heart surgery and I got a pacemaker, if I'd had to pay for that, that's over $500,000, and I wouldn't be living where I'm living right now because of the fact that the Navy paid for it through my medical. And you never know what's going to happen in your life. You can't foresee what's going to happen, whether you're going to ever need that. But I will tell you, if you get old enough, you eventually will need it.
And then at the beginning, I'm not sure if I stated your name, so if you would state your name.
Oh yeah, I'm Charlie Siebold.
Okay. All right, and thank you.